What are some horrifying theories about aliens? Story 1. Aliens are vastly more advanced than us. They might eventually treat humanity the same way humans treated wolves. People forget wolves used to be these powerful, intelligent apex predators. Then humans selectively bred them for thousands of years until we ended up with pugs that can barely breathe, dachshunds with broken spines, bulldogs that need surgical help just to give birth, and tiny purse dogs that shake constantly from anxiety. Now imagine a civilization millions of years ahead of humanity doing that to us. Not necessarily out of cruelty either. Maybe just convenience, entertainment, aesthetics, or utility. Different versions of humans engineered for specific purposes. Stronger humans for labor, smaller humans for confined environments. Emotionally altered humans are bred to be obedient or dependent. Designer humans optimize the same way we optimize dog breeds. And the scary part is we'd probably barely notice it happening at first. Humans already manipulate genetics, behavior, and reproduction constantly. So if some advanced species viewed us as intellectually inferior animals, they might not even see anything morally wrong with modifying us however they wanted. To them, it could feel as normal as breeding horses or dogs feels to humans. The really disturbing thought is how much diversity they could create over enough time. Entire subspecies of humanity shaped into grotesque forms for different environments or tasks. Some were engineered to survive underwater. Others adapted for low gravity. Others designed purely for companionship or entertainment. Basically, humanity is losing its original identity completely. And once you think about it, domestication isn't just physical. Domesticated animals also become psychologically dependent, less aggressive, more docile, easier to control. So, the nightmare version of the theory is this. What if humans already are domesticated compared to whatever we originally were? That's the kind of thought that sticks in your head because it turns humanity from the top of the food chain into somebody else's long-term breeding experiment. Story 2. They've already been here the entire time, and humanity is basically just somebody else's long-running simulation game, like cosmic Farmville. The theory says aliens didn't arrive recently in spaceships. They've supposedly been observing, tweaking, and guiding human civilization for thousands of years, the same way humans manage ant farms, animal populations, or strategy games. Wars, religions, technological breakthroughs, collapses of empires, all of it potentially influenced by something far more advanced, watching from the sidelines for entertainment, experimentation, or curiosity. And the scary part is imagining how insignificant humanity would actually look from that perspective. Think about how casually humans interfere with ecosystems. We breed animals, alter environments, wipe out species, relocate populations, and run experiments without those creatures ever understanding what's happening to them. The theory basically says aliens might view humanity the exact same way. Not with hatred necessarily, just detachment. Some versions get really dark and suggest major historical events were intentionally nudged to see how humans react under pressure. Wars as stress tests, religions as social experiments, technological leaps introduced gradually like game updates. Entire civilizations rising and falling because somebody wanted to observe the outcome. What makes the theory creepy is how impossible it would be for us to notice if something vastly more intelligent was manipulating events subtly. A species thousands or millions of years ahead of us could probably shape human behavior without leaving obvious evidence at all. And then you start looking at human history differently. The weird coincidences, Sudden scientific breakthroughs, ancient myths about gods descending from the sky, civilizations appearing and disappearing mysteriously, humanity's strange tendency towards self-destruction despite intelligence. The theory turns all of it into possible game mechanics. That's the part that sticks with people psychologically, not evil aliens invading Earth, but the possibility that humanity's entire history could just be background activity inside something else's ongoing experiment. Story 3. The possibility that the first advanced civilization humanity encounters isn't evil at all, just desperate. People always imagine aliens as either enlightened, peaceful beings or monstrous invaders, but reality would probably be much messier than that. Imagine a species whose planet is dying, their oceans collapsing, atmosphere poisoned, food systems failing, population starving, maybe their sun itself becoming unstable. A civilization that survived long enough to master interstellar travel, only to realize they're still losing the battle against extinction. That's where the theory gets unsettling. Because desperate civilizations stop caring about morality very quickly. Humans already do horrific things during wars, famines, and resource shortages, and we're nowhere near advanced enough to cross galaxies. So imagine what a hyper-advanced species might justify if the alternative is the death of their entire world. To them, humanity might simply represent resources, water, biomass, genetic material, a habitable planet, maybe even a replacement ecosystem. And the terrifying part is they might not even hate us. From their perspective, sacrificing one primitive species to save trillions of their own citizens could feel completely rational. Humans bulldoze forests and wipe out ecosystems all the time for survival or expansion. We don't consider ourselves evil for doing it. We just prioritize our own species. That's what makes this theory hit harder than classic invasion stories. It turns aliens into something understandable. A starving civilization arrives at Earth not because they want conquest or domination, but because they literally have nowhere else left to go. Every failed negotiation, every escalation, every horrifying decision driven by survival instinct instead of malice. And that's scarier than cartoonishly evil aliens to me, because desperation creates monsters out of almost anyone eventually, especially when extinction is staring them in the face. Story 4. Advanced extraterrestrials wouldn't destroy humanity out of hatred. They'd destroy us accidentally. I think I talked about something similar once, comparing humans to ants. And the more you think about it, the more horrifying it becomes. When humans build highways, dams, cities, or mines, we don't stop construction because an anthill happens to be in the way. It's not personal. We don't hate ants. Their existence just doesn't factor into our decision-making because we operate on a completely different scale of intelligence and priorities. Now imagine a civilization as far beyond humans as humans are beyond insects. That species might not even recognize us as something important enough to consider morally. If they needed Earth's oceans, atmosphere, minerals, magnetic field, or orbital position for some massive engineering project, they might simply take it. Humanity could get wiped out as collateral damage during a process they barely even notice emotionally. That's what makes this theory scarier than evil alien invasion movies. Because evil at least acknowledges you. This theory suggests humans could be so insignificant to them that our extinction wouldn't even register as cruelty, just unfortunate side effects of progress. The same way humans flatten forests, alter ecosystems, and unintentionally wipe out species while pursuing our own goals. And if a civilization advanced enough for interstellar travel exists, they'd probably operate on scales humans can barely comprehend, rearranging planets, harvesting stars, building megastructures across solar systems. At that point, Earth might just look like raw material. The really unsettling thought is that humanity already behaves this way toward less intelligent life constantly. So, if intelligence naturally creates hierarchy, then humans may simply not sit anywhere near the top of it, which means one day we could discover we're not the engineers of the universe. We're the anthill beside the construction site. Story 5. Aliens already know everything about us, while humanity still has no idea they even exist. People always imagine first contact as this dramatic moment where two civilizations suddenly discover each other at the same time. But realistically, if another species is advanced enough for interstellar travel, they'd probably find humanity long before we ever detected them. And that creates a really unsettling imbalance. Think about how humans study isolated tribes, track animals with satellites, intercept communications, map ecosystems, and monitor entire populations without those subjects understanding it's happening. Now imagine a civilization, thousands or millions of years ahead of humanity, doing the same thing to Earth. Space espionage. The theory basically says aliens could already be observing us constantly through technology, so advanced humans wouldn't even recognize it as surveillance. Monitoring military activity, communications, biology, psychology, maybe even individual people. Tiny probes hidden in asteroid belts. Observation stations disguised as natural objects. Signals buried inside cosmic background noise. Entire systems designed specifically to avoid detection. And humanity would be completely helpless against it because we wouldn't even know where to look. That's the part that really gets me. Not invasion, observation. The idea that another intelligence might already know human history, politics, languages, religions, military capabilities, internet behavior, and psychological weaknesses better than humans understand themselves. Imagine discovering Earth has basically been under silent surveillance for centuries, while humanity argued online about whether aliens even existed at all. The creepiest possibility is that advanced civilizations might naturally stay hidden, not because they fear us, but because stealth is simply smarter. Humanity already hides military satellites, submarines, surveillance systems, and spy aircraft from rivals constantly. A civilization experienced in cosmic survival would probably become incredibly good at remaining invisible, which means the silence of space might not actually mean nobody is out there. It might just mean we're the only ones broadcasting our location like idiots while everyone else quietly watches. Story 6. One horrifying thing to think about is that aliens might not even look like creatures at all. People always picture extraterrestrials as humanoids in ships with weapons and technology we can recognize. But real alien life could be something so biologically different from Earth life that humans wouldn't even immediately understand it was alive. The scariest possibility to me is some kind of interstellar pathogen. Not an invasion fleet, not laser beams, just microscopic alien biology arriving quietly from space one day and wiping humanity out before we even realize what's happening. And the terrifying part is our immune systems would probably be completely useless against it. Human beings evolved alongside Earth bacteria, viruses, fungi, and parasites for millions of years. Our bodies only know how to fight threats that fit within Earth's version of biology. But alien microorganisms might operate on entirely different chemistry, reproduction methods, proteins, or cellular structures. Our immune system might not recognize the threat at all, or worse, overreact catastrophically trying to fight something it fundamentally doesn't understand. The creepy thing is, this wouldn't even require hostile intent. A completely harmless alien ecosystem could accidentally annihilate Earth life, the same way European diseases devastated isolated human populations throughout history. Entire civilizations collapsed because their immune systems had never encountered certain pathogens before. Now scale that concept up to something literally extraterrestrial. And unlike movie invasions, humanity might never get a dramatic warning. No giant ships appearing over cities, just strange symptoms. Crops dying, ocean ecosystems are collapsing, people getting sick in ways doctors can't explain. Maybe scientists wouldn't even identify the cause immediately because they'd never imagined the infection came from outside Earth. That's what makes this idea so unsettling. The universe might not need hostile alien armies to destroy humanity. All it would take is biology that evolved somewhere else entirely and accidentally crossed paths with us. Story 7. Alien morality might be completely incompatible with human morality because it evolved from an entirely different form of life. Humans tend to assume empathy, love, family bonds, and compassion are universal concepts, but they're probably not. A huge amount of human morality comes directly from mammalian biology. We give birth to a small number of vulnerable offspring, protect them for years, form emotional attachments, recognize facial expressions, and evolve social instincts around cooperation and caregiving. But alien life might have evolved under totally different conditions. Imagine a species that reproduces by laying thousands of eggs at once, like insects or fish. Most offspring die immediately, and that's considered normal. No parental attachment, no emotional bonding, no concept of individual life being precious because life itself is cheap and disposable in their ecosystem. Now imagine those beings encountering humans. A mother crying over a dead child might make absolutely no sense to them, not because they're evil, but because they literally lack the biological framework to emotionally process what they're seeing. To them, human attachment could look irrational or even mentally unstable. That's what makes the idea so unsettling. People always imagine alien hostility as intentional cruelty, but the reality could be much colder than that. They might casually make decisions that devastate humanity simply because individual suffering doesn't register as important in their evolutionary psychology. And humans already see smaller examples of this on Earth. Certain species abandon offspring immediately. Others cannibalize their young under stress. Some insects sacrifice thousands of individuals without hesitation for colony survival. Nature already contains forms of life with moral instincts completely alien to humans. So, if extraterrestrial civilizations exist, there's no reason to assume they'd think like mammals at all. The truly horrifying first contact scenario might not involve war or hatred. It could just be humanity realizing the universe contains intelligences capable of understanding physics, engineering, and space travel perfectly, while being emotionally incapable of understanding basic human empathy. Story 8. We'd be the invaders. People always imagine first contact from the perspective of Earth being threatened by some advanced extraterrestrial civilization, but history suggests something way darker. Humanity would probably behave exactly the way powerful civilizations on Earth always have when encountering weaker ones. And that thought is terrifying because we already know what humans are capable of: colonization, slavery, resource extraction, cultural erasure, genocide. Humans have repeatedly justified horrible things whenever expansion, survival, profit, or ideology entered the equation. Entire populations were wiped out, because they happen to occupy land someone more technologically advanced wanted. Now imagine that on an interstellar scale. Suppose humanity finally masters faster-than-light travel and discovers a nearby alien species living on a beautiful, oxygen-rich world full of water, minerals, and resources humans desperately need. The aliens are intelligent, but technologically primitive compared to us. Maybe they haven't industrialized yet. Maybe they still think their gods live in the sky. How long before humans convince themselves conquest is justified? Some people would argue the planet is too valuable to ignore. Others would claim we're bringing civilization or helping them evolve. Corporations would want resources. Governments would want strategic territory. Religions would reinterpret the discovery to fit human beliefs. Eventually, the moral arguments would probably collapse under economics and politics, the same way they often do on Earth. That's what makes the theory so disturbing. Not because aliens are monsters, but because humanity might become the terrifying advanced civilization another species whispers about in fear. Massive ships arriving from the stars, strange beings immune to local weapons, entire ecosystems reshaped by outsiders who barely acknowledge the suffering they cause. And the worst part? We wouldn't even need to be evil to justify it to ourselves. History shows humans are extremely good at convincing themselves atrocities are necessary when expansion and survival are involved. Story 9. How human-centered most alien theories actually are. We always imagine aliens arriving the way humans would arrive. A few ships land dramatically somewhere, while leaders step out to communicate. But that assumption only exists because it's familiar to us. Real alien intelligence might operate in ways so fundamentally different that humanity wouldn't even understand what was happening at first. For all we know, they might not travel in ships at all. Imagine millions of entities suddenly appearing across Earth simultaneously. No invasion fleet crossing the sky. No warning. Just instant manifestation everywhere at once, like reality itself tore open. Cities, oceans, forests, underground tunnels, satellites, suddenly occupied by something humanity has absolutely no framework for understanding. And the scarier part isn't even the numbers, it's psychology. Humans automatically assume intelligence comes with recognizable emotions like empathy, fear, ambition, curiosity, or anger, because that's the only type of intelligence we've ever encountered. But alien consciousness could be built on completely different principles, different senses, different instincts, different concepts of identity or awareness itself. We might not even be capable of fully understanding how they think. It's kind of like trying to explain higher dimensions visually. Mathematicians can describe the fourth dimension conceptually, but most humans can't truly picture it in their minds because our brains evolved for a three-dimensional world. Alien cognition might work the same way, technically understandable in theory, but fundamentally impossible for humans to intuitively grasp. That's what makes the idea so disturbing. First contact might not fail because aliens are hostile. It might fail because meaningful communication itself becomes impossible. Humans are desperately trying to interpret the intentions of beings whose emotions, motivations, and perception of reality evolved so differently that we barely even register each other correctly. At that point, humanity wouldn't just feel technologically primitive. We'd feel cognitively primitive too. Story 10. If they ever actually reach Earth, humanity is probably hilariously outmatched already. People love imagining some dramatic global war where humans fight back against alien invaders with jets, missiles, and nukes like it's an action movie. But realistically, if a species can travel between stars, their technology would almost certainly be so far beyond ours that the fight would barely even qualify as a conflict. It'd be like ancient Romans trying to fight modern stealth bombers with spears. Think about what interstellar travel alone would require. Energy systems beyond anything humans currently understand. Materials science advanced enough to survive radiation, deep space, and insane travel distances. AI, physics, propulsion, medicine, every single field would probably be centuries or even millennia ahead of humanity. And if they mastered all that, then weapons technology would probably be completely incomprehensible too. That's the part people underestimate. An advanced alien civilization likely wouldn't need giant explosions or cinematic invasions. They could probably disable satellites instantly, wipe out digital infrastructure, manipulate gravity, alter biology, redirect asteroids, poison ecosystems, or attack from distances humans couldn't even detect properly. Earth's military defenses might look primitive to them the same way a castle wall looks primitive to a modern military. The really unsettling part is that advanced civilizations probably wouldn't even expose themselves to risk directly. Humans already use drones and automation for dangerous operations. So, an alien species capable of crossing galaxies might never physically land on Earth at all. Humanity could end up fighting autonomous probes, engineered organisms, or AI systems, while the real civilization stays safely light years away. And that's what makes the idea so scary. Not evil aliens, just the terrifying technological gap. Because once a civilization becomes advanced enough to casually cross interstellar distances, humans probably stop being peers entirely and start looking more like isolated primitives who never realized how small they actually were. Story 11. If a civilization is advanced enough to casually travel between stars, they probably don't need anything from us. Think about the scale involved. The speed of light is around 186,000 miles per second, and even then, it still takes years just to cross relatively nearby distances in space. So any species capable of reaching Earth would need technology so absurdly advanced that humanity would probably look prehistoric to them, which means Earth's resources likely wouldn't matter much. People always assume aliens would invade for water, minerals, or territory, but the universe is overflowing with raw materials. Entire planets made of metals, ice everywhere, uninhabited worlds, asteroids carrying more resources than humanity could ever consume. A civilization advanced enough for interstellar travel could probably gather what they need far more easily without dealing with another intelligent species at all, and that's where the unsettling part comes in. If they did come here despite all that, then the reason probably wouldn't be resources. It would mean we ourselves are the interesting thing. Maybe humanity is being observed scientifically the same way humans study rare animals. Maybe intelligent life is just extremely uncommon. Maybe civilizations at our stage of development are valuable to watch. Or maybe consciousness itself is what fascinates them. That idea feels stranger than invasion stories to me, because it means aliens might view Earth less like a prize to conquer and more like an exhibit, experiment, or developing ecosystem worth monitoring from a distance. Humans could spend centuries imagining ourselves as major players in the universe, only to discover we're basically a protected wildlife preserve for older civilizations. And the creepy part is we'd have no idea what the rules are. Are they studying us, preserving us, waiting for something, deciding whether humanity is dangerous, curious, worth contacting? That uncertainty feels way scarier than simple hostility sometimes. Story 12. People always jump straight to invasion scenarios like aliens would instantly attack Earth the second they found us. But realistically, if a civilization is advanced enough to cross interstellar space, They probably wouldn't need anything from our planet badly enough to bother invading. Think about it. Anything Earth has, water, metals, energy, minerals, exists elsewhere in ridiculous quantities without 7 billion unpredictable life forms attached to it. Why invade a populated planet when you could harvest untouched asteroids, frozen moons, gas giants, or lifeless worlds with zero resistance and zero ethical complications? That's what makes the indifference theory unsettling. It suggests humanity simply isn't important enough. An advanced species might look at Earth the same way humans look at some obscure island full of animals. Interesting for observation maybe, but not worth direct involvement. They might deliberately avoid contact because interacting with less advanced civilizations is dangerous, messy, or ethically questionable. And that idea feels weirdly realistic. Humans already avoid interfering with isolated tribes sometimes because introducing advanced technology or outside diseases can completely destabilize entire cultures. Now imagine that concept scaled up to an interstellar civilization observing humanity from afar. The really creepy possibility is that intelligent alien life may already know Earth exists and intentionally ignore us until humanity reaches some threshold. Maybe technological maturity, maybe peaceful cooperation, maybe survival without self-destruction. Or maybe civilizations like ours simply aren't rare enough to matter. That's the part that gets under my skin. Not aliens seeing humanity as a threat, but aliens see humanity as insignificant background noise in a galaxy full of older, stranger civilizations. Humans desperately searching the skies for proof we aren't alone while the rest of the universe quietly decides we're not worth engaging with yet. That kind of cosmic indifference feels colder than invasion stories. Story 13. Humans automatically assume extraterrestrial life would look at least somewhat familiar to us. Big mistake. Every alien in movies is basically just a modified human. Arms, legs, eyes, mouths, emotions, motivations. Even the weird ones still follow Earth biology enough for our brains to process them. But actual alien life could be so fundamentally different that humans might not even recognize it as alive at first. For all we know, an alien species could exist as patterns of sound waves, electromagnetic fields, plasma, microscopic swarms, or some form of consciousness spread across an entire environment. Life on Earth evolved under very specific chemical and environmental conditions, but the universe is unimaginably huge. There's no reason alien evolution would follow the same rules. And that's the part that creeps me out. Imagine making first contact with something humans physically can't perceive properly. Maybe certain unexplained sounds are actually communication. Maybe some alien life exists at scales too small for humans to naturally notice, or too large, or outside the tiny slice of the electromagnetic spectrum our senses evolved to process. The microscopic alien idea is especially disturbing. Humans tend to think intelligence has to be large and visible, but a civilization made of microscopic organisms could theoretically spread through environments like dust or spores. Entire alien ecosystems drifting silently through space without ships or cities at all. Humanity might accidentally inhale extraterrestrial life before we even realize first contact happened. And the sound wave idea gets existential fast too. Imagine beings that experience reality entirely through vibration and frequency rather than physical structure. Communication, movement, perception, all completely alien to human understanding. We might not even be capable of recognizing their presence without specialized technology. That's why real alien life is probably way scarier than classic little green men. Because the universe doesn't owe humanity familiarity. The first truly alien thing humans encounter might not fit into any category our brains evolved to understand. Story 14. Aliens might not see humanity as violent because of war or nuclear weapons. They might see all life on Earth as horrifying. Think about it from an outside perspective. Every living thing on this planet survives by consuming other living organisms. Animals tear each other apart constantly. Parasites burrow into hosts. Predators hunt prey alive. Even peaceful herbivores survive by destroying plant life. The entire ecosystem basically runs on death recycling endlessly. Humans are so used to it that we barely think about how insane it actually is. But an alien civilization that evolved differently might see Earth as absolute nightmare fuel. Imagine a species that evolved beyond biological consumption entirely. Maybe they use synthetic energy, photosynthesis, radiation absorption, or some completely unknown process that doesn't require killing to survive. Then they arrive on Earth and realize every creature here survives by eating something weaker than itself. To them, humanity could look less like intelligent life and more like a planet-wide infection. And the worst part is, they might not even distinguish humans from the rest of the ecosystem. We tend to separate ourselves morally from nature because we have civilization and self-awareness. But aliens might just see Earth as one giant, competitive feeding system where every organism constantly consumes others to stay alive. Some theories even suggest an advanced species could see predatory biology itself as dangerous or unstable. A civilization that evolved without violence might genuinely consider carnivorous ecosystems too hostile to coexist with safely. That's where the terrifying thought comes in. What if aliens don't attack Earth out of conquest or hatred? What if they decide Earth simply shouldn't exist? Not because humans are evil specifically, but because the entire biological structure of life here appears grotesque and morally unacceptable to them. Like discovering a planet where every organism survives through endless suffering and consumption. And from their perspective, pressing the nope button might feel less like genocide and more like containment. Story 15. Not because humanity would be lonely, but because of what that would imply about the future of intelligent life. The universe is unimaginably huge. Billions of galaxies, trillions of planets. Statistically, it feels almost impossible that humanity would be the only intelligent civilization to ever exist. So, if the cosmos is still completely silent, despite all that space and time, something might be going horribly wrong to advanced civilizations before they can spread across the stars. That's where the theory gets terrifying. It ties into the idea of the great filter, the possibility that there's some barrier almost all intelligent species eventually hit. Maybe civilizations destroy themselves with war, climate collapse, AI, pandemics, resource exhaustion, or technologies they can't control. Maybe advanced societies always collapse before interstellar colonization becomes possible. And if humanity looks out into the universe and sees nothing, that might mean the filter is still ahead of us. That's way scarier than hostile aliens to me. Because at least hostile aliens prove survival is possible long enough to become advanced. A silent universe suggests intelligence itself may be unstable. Civilizations rise, become technologically powerful, and then vanish before leaving a lasting mark on the galaxy. The creepy part is how realistic that feels sometimes. Humans already have nuclear weapons, environmental crises, engineered viruses, AI development racing ahead faster than regulation, and global instability all happening simultaneously. We're powerful enough to alter the planet now, but not necessarily wise enough to manage that power responsibly. So, the silence of space stops feeling comforting. It starts feeling like a graveyard, like humanity is standing at the exact same stage countless other civilizations once reached right before disappearing forever. And nobody's answering our signals because there's nobody left to answer them. Story 16. They just see us beneath them. People always imagine hostile aliens as angry invaders, but realistically, a civilization advanced enough to travel between stars might view humans the same way humans view insects, livestock, or lab animals. Not evil, not malicious, just fundamentally lower life forms. And that's way more disturbing, because when humans step on ants, pave over habitats, experiment on animals, or slaughter billions of creatures for food every year, we rarely stop to question it emotionally. We don't consider ourselves monsters for doing it, because those species exist lower than us in the hierarchy we created. Now imagine humanity on the bottom of somebody else's hierarchy. That's where the theory becomes terrifying. Aliens might use humans for labor, experimentation, biological harvesting, or entertainment without feeling guilt, because to them, it wouldn't be cruelty. Humans could scream, beg, and suffer exactly the same way animals on Earth do, while the alien civilization barely even registers it morally. The really uncomfortable part is humans already understand this logic perfectly because we live it every day. Entire species are controlled, bred, modified, confined, and killed for our benefit constantly. So if intelligence naturally creates power hierarchies, then there's no reason to assume humanity would magically sit at the top forever. And if the technological gap is large enough, resistance becomes meaningless. An advanced civilization could probably control humanity completely without needing dramatic wars or destruction. Monitoring systems, genetic manipulation, psychological control, artificial environments. Humans might become managed resources rather than independent beings. That's what makes the idea so horrifying. Not aliens destroying humanity in rage, but aliens treating humanity with the same casual indifference humans already show weaker life forms on Earth. Like our entire civilization only mattered until something smarter arrived and quietly decided otherwise. Story 17. Humanity already has been discovered, and the galaxy quietly decided we're a lost cause. Not important enough to invade, not advanced enough to contact, just dangerous, unstable, and better avoided entirely. Imagine some alien civilization finally detecting Earth a few decades ago and beginning long-range observation. They study our broadcasts, internet, wars, politics, environmental destruction, social media, nuclear stockpiles, economic inequality, conspiracy theories, and the fact that humans can barely cooperate with each other for 5 minutes without turning everything into chaos. And after watching all that, they basically mark Earth as a cosmic disaster zone, like the interstellar equivalent of a quarantined wasteland. The creepy part is how understandable that reaction would be. Imagine if humans discovered a planet where an intelligent species constantly poisoned its own environment, threatened itself with extinction weapons, spread misinformation nonstop, and divided into hostile groups over almost everything imaginable. Most people would probably say, yeah, maybe don't land there yet. The theory gets darker when you imagine there could already be some kind of unspoken galactic agreement surrounding Earth. Maybe advanced civilizations actively avoid contact because humanity is considered too aggressive, unpredictable, or psychologically immature. Like we're the weird, violent species nobody wants to interact with until we either stabilize or wipe ourselves out. And the really unsettling possibility, What if alien civilizations used to monitor Earth more closely, but gradually backed away after realizing how dangerous humans can become technologically without corresponding emotional maturity? That idea hits hard because it flips humanity's perspective completely. Humans spend so much time wondering why aliens haven't visited us. But maybe the real question is, why would they? From a cosmic perspective, Earth might not look like an enlightened civilization waiting for first contact. It might look like a planet-wide argument happening next to a pile of nuclear weapons. And somewhere out there, older civilizations could simply be watching from a safe distance, hoping the situation eventually improves. Story 18, the cosmic equivalent of an isolated island tribe. You know those remote tribes in the Pacific that have lived mostly untouched for thousands of years? The ones modern civilization tries not to interfere with, because introducing advanced technology, disease, or outside influence could completely destroy their culture overnight. That might literally be Earth. Imagine humanity sitting here proudly arguing online about whether aliens exist, while the rest of the galaxy already knows we're some protected primitive civilization barely stumbling through early technological development. Meanwhile, giant interstellar corporations are eyeing Earth the same way massive logging companies look at untouched rainforest land. Resources, water, biodiversity, rare materials, strategic location. To them, Earth might look incredibly valuable. And that's where the theory gets weirdly dark and funny at the same time. Somewhere out there, there's supposedly an alien version of Greenpeace, desperately trying to stop humanity from getting exploited. Tiny activist groups lobbying galactic governments not to interfere with Earth, because humans are still too primitive to defend themselves or understand what's happening. Meanwhile, giant alien corporations are probably arguing things like, they're not even spacefaring yet, who cares? While trying to secure mining rights to the solar system. The creepiest part is how realistic the power imbalance feels. Humans already justify exploiting weaker civilizations and ecosystems constantly when economics get involved. History is full of powerful groups steamrolling less advanced populations while convincing themselves it's necessary or inevitable. So the idea of humanity ending up on the weaker side of that equation suddenly becomes way more uncomfortable. And it also creates this hilarious but unsettling image of Earth quietly existing inside some giant interstellar political debate humans know absolutely nothing about. Like, maybe aliens have found us already. But whether humanity survives contact depends entirely on whether the cosmic environmentalists can keep the corporations away long enough for humans to mature technologically, which is both absurd and somehow believable at the same time. Story 19, how small the gap might actually be between humanity and complete irrelevance. Humans love calling ourselves the intelligent species, but that's mostly because we're comparing ourselves to life on Earth. Genetically, humans and chimpanzees are incredibly close, around a 1% difference in DNA depending on how you measure it. Yet the difference in capability feels massive. Humans built cities, telescopes, nuclear weapons, artificial intelligence, and space programs, while the smartest chimp might figure out basic tools or stack objects together. Now imagine that same gap existing above us instead of below us. That's the scary part. Picture an alien civilization only slightly more advanced biologically or cognitively than humanity in evolutionary terms, but enough to create an intelligence gap as large as the one between humans and chimps. To them, humans might technically appear intelligent, but only in the same limited way humans recognize intelligence in animals. We might seem clever, but primitive. And Humans already struggle to meaningfully communicate with other intelligent Earth species despite decades of effort. We can't fully explain mathematics, philosophy, or physics to chimpanzees because the cognitive gap is too large. The chimp doesn't even understand what it's missing. Now reverse that situation. An alien civilization, vastly smarter than humanity, might discuss concepts humans literally cannot comprehend, no matter how hard we try. Entire branches of science, dimensions of perception, forms of communication, or understandings of reality completely inaccessible to the human brain. That's what makes the theory unsettling psychologically. Humans assume we're near the top because we're the smartest thing we've encountered so far. But evolution doesn't suddenly stop at us. There's no reason human intelligence should represent some final stage. And if something exists even slightly beyond us cognitively, humanity might suddenly realize we're not the wise observers of the universe. We're the chimpanzees staring upward while something vastly smarter quietly studies us from the other side of the glass. Story 20. Humanity is simply too small to understand the true scale of reality around us. Sometimes people call it the ant theory. The basic idea is that humans might relate to advanced cosmic beings the same way ants relate to humans. Not just technologically inferior, but fundamentally incapable of grasping the bigger picture we exist inside. And once you start looking at images of the universe, the theory gets unsettling fast. Earth already feels tiny compared to the cosmos. One planet around one average star inside one galaxy containing hundreds of billions of stars, surrounded by billions of other galaxies stretching farther than humans can even properly visualize. The scale becomes so absurd that human existence starts feeling microscopic. Now imagine an alien species operating naturally on that larger scale. To them, Earth might literally seem as insignificant as a marble sitting in a field. Humanity's entire history, wars, religions, empires, internet arguments, scientific breakthroughs, compressed into something too small for them to seriously notice emotionally. That's where the ant comparison gets really disturbing. Ants can't comprehend highways, governments, satellites, economics, or human civilization because their brains evolved for a tiny local reality. Humans can accidentally destroy entire colonies without even realizing they were there. Not out of cruelty, simply because the scale difference is too massive. The theory says humanity could exist in that exact relationship to something higher. Maybe advanced beings already move through dimensions or regions of reality humans can't perceive properly. Maybe entire civilizations exist around us constantly, while human senses only detect this tiny narrow slice of existence. Just like ants crawling beside a skyscraper without understanding what a city is. That's what makes the theory so unnerving. Not evil aliens, but the possibility that humanity's understanding of reality itself might be laughably incomplete. Like we're tiny creatures trapped inside a much bigger world our brains were never designed to fully comprehend. Story 21. The first contact already happened a long time ago, and humanity was the invasion. The theory basically says humans don't actually belong on Earth naturally. At some point in the distant past, an advanced species supposedly arrived here, wiped out or displaced whatever intelligent life originally existed on the planet, and then colonized it. Over thousands or millions of years, those invaders either evolved into modern humans or genetically engineered humanity to survive here, meaning we were the aliens all along. And the creepy part is how strange humans already are compared to the rest of Earth's ecosystem. People point out things like humans having chronic back problems from upright walking, difficulty giving birth compared to most animals, fragile skin, susceptibility to sunburn, and weird psychological traits that don't always seem perfectly adapted for this planet. Conspiracy theories take those quirks and interpret them as evidence humanity wasn't originally meant to evolve under Earth's conditions. Some versions get even darker and suggest ancient myths about gods descending from the sky were distorted memories of the arrival itself. Massive cataclysms, genetic manipulation. Ancient civilizations suddenly appeared with advanced knowledge, humanity replacing another dominant species while barely remembering it happened. The most unsettling part is imagining what humanity would look like from the outside if the theory were true. We already reshape entire ecosystems wherever we go. We wipe out species, terraform environments, spread uncontrollably, consume resources aggressively, and alter the planet faster than almost any other life form in Earth's history. Humans behave less like a balanced part of nature sometimes, and more like an invasive species that arrived from somewhere else entirely. That's why this theory sticks with people psychologically, because it reframes humanity's entire existence, not as Earth's rightful inhabitants, but as descendants of some ancient colonization event so old we eventually forgot we were ever outsiders in the first place. Story 22. The theory says advanced civilizations may have been monitoring Earth since humans were still living in caves. Watching us slowly evolve from primitive tribes into modern civilization, the same way humans observe developing animal species or isolated ecosystems. And after all that time studying us, they supposedly came to one conclusion: humanity just isn't worth engaging with. That thought hits way harder than invasion stories to me, because it suggests aliens don't fear us, hate us, or even really care about us emotionally. We're simply too primitive to matter on a galactic scale. Think about it from their perspective. If a civilization is advanced enough to travel between stars, they've probably existed for thousands or millions of years longer than humanity. They may have already seen countless young civilizations rise and collapse. To them, humans might look aggressive, unstable, tribal, emotionally reactive, and technologically immature, which isn't even completely unfair. The theory gets darker when you imagine aliens periodically checking in on humanity throughout history, hoping we'd eventually mature. Then every time they look back, humans are still fighting wars, dividing ourselves over religion or politics, destroying ecosystems, threatening nuclear annihilation, and struggling to cooperate globally. At some point, they might simply stop bothering. That's the unsettling part. Humans spend so much time wondering why aliens haven't contacted us. But maybe the answer is painfully simple. They already evaluated humanity and decided we're not ready, not useful, and not stable enough to justify interaction. Like a civilization stuck permanently in its chaotic teenage phase. And cosmic indifference feels colder than hostility sometimes. At least enemies acknowledge your existence. This theory suggests humanity might just be background noise to older civilizations watching from far away before moving on to something more interesting. Story 23. I think the most horrifying part about discovering aliens wouldn't be invasion or war. It would be humanity, realizing we are completely unprepared psychologically for something truly non-human. People imagine first contact like it would play out in a movie where aliens arrive, introduce themselves, and humans slowly adapt. But real alien life could be so far outside human experience that our brains might genuinely struggle to process it correctly. And that's terrifying. Humans evolved to understand other humans, animals, faces, emotion patterns, and environments found on Earth. Every fear response, social instinct, and survival mechanism we have is built around familiar biology and familiar reality. But aliens might completely break those instincts. Imagine encountering something that doesn't communicate in recognizable ways. Something with no facial expressions, no understandable emotions, no body language, maybe not even a stable physical form humans can easily perceive. A presence so foreign that people instinctively panic simply because the human brain has no category for it. The scary part is humanity would probably react horribly. Religions would fracture overnight trying to explain the discovery. Governments would panic. Economies would destabilize. Conspiracy theories would explode everywhere. Some people would worship the aliens. Others would see them as demons or existential threats. Entire populations might mentally collapse under the realization that humans are no longer the center of reality. And even scientists might struggle emotionally, despite understanding the significance intellectually. Because discovering aliens wouldn't just mean we're not alone. It would fundamentally destroy humanity's sense of uniqueness forever. That's the part people underestimate. First contact wouldn't just be a scientific discovery. It would be a psychological event affecting every human belief system at once. Philosophy, religion, politics, history, identity, suddenly all forced to adapt overnight to something potentially beyond human comprehension. And if the aliens were advanced enough, humans might feel less like equals meeting another civilization, and more like primitive animals suddenly becoming aware of a much larger world they were never prepared to see. Story 24. Aliens might not exist at all. People usually focus on scary scenarios where aliens invade Earth or wipe humanity out. But at least those theories prove intelligent life can survive long enough to become advanced. The idea that humanity might be completely alone in the universe is somehow way darker to me, because the universe is absurdly huge. There are billions of galaxies, each containing billions of stars, with planets everywhere. The numbers are so massive that the human brain can barely process them properly. Statistically, it feels almost impossible that Earth would be the only place where intelligent life ever emerged. So, if humanity searches all that space and still finds nothing, something may be deeply wrong. Maybe intelligent life is unbelievably rare. Maybe civilizations always destroy themselves before reaching the stars. Maybe life itself almost never survives long enough to become technologically advanced. Suddenly, the silence of the universe stops feeling peaceful and starts feeling ominous. That's what makes the idea so unsettling. Humans desperately want aliens to exist because it makes the universe feel alive and connected. Even dangerous aliens would prove consciousness isn't unique to Earth. But if there's nobody else out there, then humanity becomes this tiny, isolated accident floating through an endless dead cosmos. And that realization would put terrifying pressure on humanity. Because if we really are alone, then every human achievement, every culture, every piece of art, science, history, emotion, and consciousness in the known universe exists only here. One asteroid, one war, one global catastrophe, and intelligent life might disappear completely forever. No backup civilizations, no older species guiding us, no hidden galactic community, just us. That's why the silence of space creeps people out so much. The universe is so unimaginably large that it almost feels wrong for it to be empty. And if it is empty, humanity may be far more fragile and important than we're comfortable admitting. Story 25. Humanity might not even register as important enough for advanced civilizations to care about emotionally. People always imagine aliens behaving like humans with spaceships, conquering, negotiating, fighting wars, claiming territory. But a civilization thousands or millions of years older than humanity might have evolved completely beyond biological life as we understand it. At that point, DNA itself could become obsolete. The theory says truly advanced beings probably wouldn't be locked into permanent biological bodies anymore. They could design forms consciously, depending on the environment or task. Need to explore deep oceans? Build a body for that. Need to survive radiation in space? Design another one. Their minds might exist mostly inside artificial virtual realities, distributed networks, or forms of consciousness humans can barely conceptualize, which means humans wouldn't even seem remotely comparable to them. That's the unsettling part. To beings operating on those levels, humanity might look primitive in the same way ants look primitive to us. Intelligent in a limited sense, maybe, but trapped inside fragile biological systems, fighting over resources, reproducing uncontrollably, aging, dying, and barely understanding the universe around us. And humans already ignore less advanced forms of life constantly. An anthill might contain thousands of individuals with their own complex communication systems and social structures, but humans still accidentally destroy entire colonies without thinking twice because they exist so far below our scale of awareness and priorities. The theory says aliens could view humanity exactly the same way, not out of cruelty, just indifference created by an unimaginable gap in intelligence and evolution. The really eerie thought is that advanced civilizations might already spend most of their existence inside simulated realities or forms of digital consciousness so rich and complex that physical space itself barely matters anymore. Earth could simply look like one tiny biological ecosystem among billions. Interesting briefly, maybe worth observing occasionally, but nowhere near important enough to engage deeply with. That kind of cosmic indifference feels colder than invasion stories. At least enemies acknowledge your existence. This theory suggests humanity may not even matter enough to hate. Story 26. Humans might instinctively fear them on a biological level before they even do anything threatening. Think about bugs for a second. A lot of people are terrified of spiders, centipedes, or insects, even when they know logically those creatures are harmless. Too many eyes, too many legs, strange movement patterns, sudden bursts of speed. The way they move feels fundamentally wrong to our brains because they're so different from us evolutionarily. And the crazy part is bugs still evolve on Earth. Deep down, humans and insects still share an incredibly ancient common ancestor somewhere in the history of life. As alien as they seem, they're technically distant relatives shaped by the same planet, same chemistry, same evolutionary rules. Now imagine something with absolutely no connection to Earth biology whatsoever. That's where the idea becomes terrifying. Real aliens wouldn't just be humans, but green. Their movement, communication, body structure, senses, and behavior could be so foreign that humans might instinctively panic just looking at them. Our brains evolved to recognize familiar patterns in living things on Earth. Alien life might completely break those patterns. Maybe they move in ways humans physically can't predict properly. Maybe they don't have recognizable faces or symmetry. Maybe their bodies constantly shift shape, emit frequencies, or interact with the environment in ways that trigger pure instinctive fear before rational thought even kicks in. And humans might react violently immediately because of that fear. That's the disturbing part. First contact could fail before communication even begins, simply because the human nervous system interprets truly alien life as fundamentally unnatural or threatening, like encountering a giant moving insect multiplied by something infinitely stranger. The theory also makes you realize how Earth-centric human imagination is. Every fictional alien still follows enough familiar biology for humans to tolerate visually. But actual extraterrestrial life might look so incomprehensibly bizarre that people literally couldn't emotionally process it correctly. And if that's true, the first real alien humanity sees might not just feel unknown, it might feel biologically horrifying. Story 27. I invite you to contemplate how insignificant you are to me. Seriously, what exactly does Earth have that any alien might want? Water. There are trillions upon trillions of cubic miles of it floating around in space. You're likely to find water around nearly every star in the galaxy. It would be far easier to get it elsewhere than it is to haul ours out of the gravity well. Minerals, elements, chemical compounds. Again, trillions of tons of much more easily accessed elsewhere, or easily mass-produced using the near infinite raw materials and energy found all round the galaxy. How about human labor? Delicate, easily killed, has to be fed, watered, needs to rest at least a third of its life. Intractable, stupid, devious, rebellious. Long, slow process to cultivate and educate. Certainly any race that can span the distance between stars can find better alternatives. Our technology? Don't make me laugh. The only thing this planet has that is unique to it is the fauna and flora itself. Our only value is as a nature preserve, which means we are wrecking the only value our planet has to the universe. If anything at all, the only reason why aliens would come here would be to stop the destruction, probably by wiping out 99% of the species doing the most damage. Story 28. We don't know what life looks like. Our theory of life strictly applies to Earth-based organisms, and the moment we actually discover any form of extraterrestrial life, that theory is going to fly out the window. For all we know, we could be surrounded by alien life and not even know it. Maybe the stars are actually a plasma-based species that conquered the universe long ago, or there are sentient rocks that colonized all of the terrestrial planets. Maybe every hydrogen atom is actually capable of advanced communication, art, and curiosity, but we can't recognize it because we don't know what to look for. I'm not saying any of those are true or that you should believe them, you shouldn't, but it just barely opens up the idea of how ignorant our thought process is. For us, if it doesn't walk and talk or send radio signals, then it isn't an alien. Maybe finding extraterrestrial life is easy, and we've already come across it 1,000,000 times over, just in this century, but we wouldn't know because we aren't looking for life. We're looking for humans from space. Story 29. The universe is quiet for a reason. Not because nobody is out there, but because everything intelligent learned to stay silent. This idea is sometimes connected to the dark forest theory. The basic concept is that space is like a giant dark forest, where every civilization is both a hunter and potential prey. Nobody knows who can be trusted, and the moment you reveal your location, something bigger and more dangerous might hear you. And according to the nightmare version of the theory, there's already a super predator species out there. Not necessarily evil, just ancient, hyper-advanced, and operating on survival instinct. Whenever a civilization becomes technologically advanced enough to start broadcasting signals into space, expanding aggressively, or drawing attention to itself, the predator notices and wipes it out before it can become a threat. Completely. That's what makes humanity's behavior feel creepy in hindsight. Humans have been blasting radio signals into space for decades. We've sent probes with maps pointing directly back to Earth. We constantly assume contact with alien life would be exciting or beneficial, without considering that advanced civilizations might deliberately avoid detection for self-preservation. The theory basically says silence itself is the warning. Every intelligent species that survived long enough learned the same lesson eventually. Stay hidden or die. And honestly, the terrifying part is imagining how powerless humanity would be if something like that existed. A civilization capable of crossing interstellar distances and exterminating emerging species repeatedly over millions of years would probably operate on scales humans can barely comprehend. Automated probes drifting silently between stars. AI hunter systems monitoring electromagnetic activity. Entire civilizations erased before they fully understand what found them. No dramatic invasion speeches. No negotiations. Just sudden extinction. That's why this theory sticks with people so strongly. It turns the silence of the universe into something active and threatening. Every unanswered signal stops feeling lonely and starts feeling like maybe the smarter civilizations already know not to answer back. And humanity might be the only species dumb enough to keep shouting into the dark. Story 30. How unbelievably limited human imagination probably is when it comes to what extraterrestrial life could actually look like. Humans always default to humanoid aliens because that's what our brains are comfortable with. Big heads, 2 eyes, arms, legs, maybe green skin or giant black eyes. Even when movies try making aliens weird, they still usually follow recognizable Earth biology, enough for humans to process them. But real alien life could be far stranger than anything humans are psychologically prepared for. And honestly, that's terrifying. Every organism on Earth shares common evolutionary roots. Humans, insects, fish, trees, fungi, all connected distantly through the same planetary biology and chemistry. Even the creepiest creatures on Earth still evolved under the same gravity, atmosphere, physics, and environmental pressures humans did. Alien life wouldn't have any of that shared history. So there's no reason extraterrestrials would evolve symmetry, recognizable faces, emotions, movement patterns, or even stable body structures humans can intuitively understand. They might look more like massive insectoid predators, biomechanical organisms, shifting colonies, or something so bizarre that human brains instinctively reject it as wrong before rational thought even kicks in. That's what makes the idea genuinely unsettling. Humans might encounter life forms so alien that we literally can't emotionally process them properly. Movement patterns that trigger primal fear. Communication methods humans can't interpret. Senses based on things we don't even perceive naturally. Entire forms of consciousness operating completely outside human experience. And the creepy part is humanity wouldn't have time to mentally prepare for it. The first confirmed alien encounter could instantly shatter every human assumption about biology and intelligence at once. Suddenly, all the cute sci-fi alien designs humans grew up with would feel laughably naive compared to the reality standing in front of us. That's why the xenomorph-type theories scare people so much. Not because aliens specifically look like movie monsters, but because the universe probably contains forms of life far stranger and more horrifying than human imagination evolved to comfortably handle. Story 31. Humans automatically try to force them into categories that only make sense on Earth. We always describe extraterrestrials using comparisons to familiar life. Insectoid, reptilian, mammalian, humanoid, plant-like. Even the weirdest sci-fi creatures are usually just combinations of Earth organisms because that's all human brains know how to work with. But real alien life might completely break every category humans have for biology. And honestly, that idea is terrifying. Every living thing on Earth, humans, bugs, fish, fungi, trees, bacteria, shares the same basic evolutionary origin. Different branches, sure, but still connected to the same planetary chemistry and biological framework. That's why humans can still recognize patterns in unfamiliar Earth creatures. Even the strangest deep-sea organisms still feel biologically understandable on some level. Alien life wouldn't share any of that history, which means humans might encounter organisms that don't fit any concept of life we currently have. Not an animal, not a plant, not fungus, not even something built from cells the way Earth life is. Entirely different methods of reproduction, communication, perception, movement, or consciousness itself. That's the unsettling part. Humans assume we'd recognize alien life immediately, but we might not even know what we're looking at. Imagine discovering something that exists somewhere between matter and energy, or a living ecosystem functioning as a single intelligence, or organisms whose bodies constantly change form depending on environment and purpose. The really creepy possibility is that humans could already lack the language or mental framework needed to properly describe truly alien life. We'd keep trying to compare it to insects, animals, or machines because our brains evolved inside Earth's tiny bubble of biology. But the universe doesn't have to follow Earth's rules. And if extraterrestrial life is genuinely alien, first contact might not just feel strange. It might completely shatter humanity's entire understanding of what life even means. Story 32. Humanity might never even make it to a dramatic first contact moment because biology alone could destroy everything first. People always imagine alien threats as ships, weapons, or invasions. But honestly, the scariest possibility is accidental contamination. Humans already struggle constantly with diseases that evolved on the same planet as us. Viruses, bacteria, fungi, parasites. Earth life has been in a biological arms race for millions of years, and it still kills millions of people. Now imagine contact with organisms that evolved completely independently somewhere else in the universe. That's where the nightmare begins. A harmless extraterrestrial microbe might devastate Earth life simply because our immune systems would have absolutely no reference point for it. Human biology evolved specifically to recognize Earth-based pathogens. Alien microorganisms could operate on entirely unfamiliar chemistry, structures, or reproductive systems that human immune defenses might completely fail to detect or respond to correctly. And the terrifying part is the aliens might not even realize they're dangerous. It's similar to isolated tribes like the modern humans carry diseases those populations were never exposed to historically, meaning a single outside visitor could accidentally wipe out huge portions of the population without malicious intent at all. Now scale that idea up to something literally extraterrestrial. The really creepy possibility is that contamination could go both ways. Earth organisms might be catastrophic to alien biology too. First contact could accidentally trigger mutual ecological collapse simply because two completely separate evolutionary systems were never meant to interact. And unlike movies, humanity probably wouldn't recognize the danger immediately. Strange illnesses, ecosystem failures, crops dying, oceans changing chemically. Scientists might spend months trying to understand what's happening, while the contamination spreads globally. That's what makes the idea so unsettling. The universe might not need hostile aliens to threaten humanity. Simple contact itself could be enough. Story 33. Here's a thought that always stuck with me about advanced aliens and the kind of technology they'd realistically need. If a civilization is traveling between stars regularly, they're almost certainly operating with physics far beyond anything humans fully understand right now. The two biggest ideas humanity currently has for faster-than-light travel are wormholes and the Alcubierre drive. Neither technically breaks the speed of light. Instead, they cheat by manipulating space itself. A wormhole is basically a tunnel connecting two distant points in space. Instead of traveling across the distance normally, you'd fold space so the two locations touch, then move through the shortcut. The Alcubierre drive is weirder. It works more like a warp bubble where space compresses in front of a ship and expands behind it, allowing the ship to move faster than light without technically moving through space traditionally. Both concepts sound insane already, but the really creepy part is what they supposedly require: exotic matter, hypothetical material with negative mass or negative energy properties, matter that would behave completely opposite to normal physics, potentially repelled by gravity itself. And for either FTL concept to work, you'd supposedly need absurd amounts of it, maybe tons, maybe the equivalent of an entire asteroid made of antimass. Now, imagine the level of control required to manipulate something like that safely. An advanced civilization would need technology capable of shaping space-time with near-perfect precision, because one tiny mistake could potentially destroy planets, stars, or entire solar systems. At that point, alien spacecraft stop sounding like vehicles and start sounding more like controlled tiers in reality itself. And that's what makes advanced aliens terrifying to me. Any species casually traveling between stars probably isn't just technologically ahead of us. They're operating on a level of physics humans can barely even conceptualize. Story 34. Humans already hand over enormous amounts of personal information willingly every single day. Search histories, conversations, locations, habits, fears, political beliefs, relationships, medical records, facial scans, voice samples. Entire lives are constantly being uploaded and archived online. Corporations and governments already use that information to predict and influence human behavior to a scary degree. Now imagine a civilization thousands of years more advanced gaining access to all of it. That's where the theory gets really unsettling. An alien intelligence capable of interstellar travel would probably have computing systems so advanced they could analyze humanity psychologically almost instantly. Every weakness, division, addiction, emotional trigger, and behavioral pattern mapped out with terrifying precision. Humans might feel unpredictable to ourselves while appearing completely transparent to something vastly smarter. And honestly, humanity already provides the perfect data set voluntarily. Social media alone contains a near-complete emotional profile of modern civilization. What humans fear, what makes them angry, what keeps them distracted, what causes panic, what creates loyalty. An advanced intelligence studying Earth through our digital footprint could potentially understand humanity better than humans understand themselves. The creepy part is they might not even need to invade physically. Manipulation could happen entirely through information, subtle influence campaigns, AI-generated communication, tailored psychological operations, nudging humanity into conflict or obedience simply by exploiting existing weaknesses already visible in our data. And humans would probably never realize it. That's the scary thing about superior intelligence. The more advanced something becomes, the less force it actually needs to use. Humans already manipulate animal behavior through conditioning and environmental control, rather than brute strength most of the time. A civilization far beyond humanity might do the same thing to us on a planetary scale, which means the real danger of aliens may not be giant ships appearing in the sky, but the possibility that humanity has already made itself completely readable to anything intelligent enough to look at. Story 35. Intelligent life does exist throughout the universe. It just never survives long enough to spread. The theory says the silence of space isn't natural. It's enforced. Think about it. Statistically, the universe should be overflowing with civilizations. Billions of stars older than our sun. Countless planets that had far more time than Earth to develop intelligent life. So, if interstellar travel is even remotely achievable, somebody should have colonized huge portions of the galaxy by now. Yet everything is quiet. No signals, no megastructures, no evidence. And according to this theory, there's a horrifying reason for that. Somewhere out there exists a civilization, or maybe an automated system, so overwhelmingly advanced that it eliminates any species reaching a dangerous level of technological growth. Every emerging civilization eventually hits a point where it begins transmitting signals, developing advanced AI, experimenting with physics, or expanding into nearby space. And that's when it gets noticed. The theory imagines something ancient operating with absolute purpose across cosmic timescales. Not emotional, not cruel, just efficient. A force that views every rising civilization as a future threat and destroys it long before it can compete. That's why the universe looks empty, not because nobody's there, but because nothing is allowed to survive. And honestly, the scariest part is imagining how invisible such a force would be to humanity. A civilization capable of monitoring and exterminating species across galaxies would probably be incomprehensibly advanced. Humans might never see ships, weapons, or attackers at all. Entire worlds could simply go silent one day, which turns humanity's attempts to contact alien life into something deeply unsettling. Every radio signal, every probe, every message broadcast into space might basically be humanity screaming into a dark forest, hoping nothing dangerous hears us back. And maybe the reason nobody answers is because the civilization smart enough to survive already learned silence is the only protection they have left.